Hey, this is Joe Burnett. I wanted to show you what my work process looks like. Just a quick summary of um, the way that I keep myself organized, the way that I um, move from task to task, come back to things, prioritize, etc. People have a variety of different ways of managing this. Some of it's very personal, so I'm going to share a little bit about my philosophy behind it, why I do what I do. Maybe some of it's useful, maybe some of it's not. But anyway, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about like why I am sort of doing some of the weird stuff that I do. And I'm going to show you how I organize myself and then how I do my day-to-day work and sort of wrap things up at the end of the day. So the goal of a work process is to do the right thing at the right time. And that's very, very subjective. Depends on, the context, the business goals, personal goals, the way you're feeling on a particular day, what your values are, etc. And this is a lot of information. You can't really like think about all that explicitly, but we do have a really good engine for processing that kind of information. That's our lower brain. That's the subconscious that is always observing everything and producing feelings, gut feelings, emotions, pointing your attention to things as it controlling and snapping your cognitive attention to different things. So we have a way to manage all of these demands and like competing sort of requirements for doing the right thing at the right time. So it's all about information filtering. So my strategy is to normalize the information that we have into a sort of a consistent format, condense it, filter it, and feed it to my lower brain. Give it a dashboard with like the most important things represented, things like in the same way, so in a consistent way, so that as I absorb that and as I think about what's available for me to do, I can make like a value-based decision. Like, I'm going to do the thing that I promised somebody that I would do, or I'm going to do the thing that's urgent and on fire, or, I just feel like writing some code. I think this thing that's been bothering me, so I'm just going to go fix it. Sometimes the thing to do is to take a nap. That's okay. That's like it's important that your organization, your work process doesn't oppress you, but enable you to make value-based decisions. I think the fundamental like philosophy behind my daily work process is I start every day with a new list. Like I don't want to carry over stress from what I did yesterday, because what I did yesterday doesn't necessarily dictate what I do today. Starting with a new list, starting fresh, being able to always sort of just take everything that's prior, set it aside, and just sort of say, okay, I see everything. Now let me just use my intuition, my human like values, and decide these are the things that I'm going to do today in these orders. And it's important that comes from you, that it's something that you control, not external. So keeping some systems at bay is kind of important. So I've settled on an environment of the command line for a couple of reasons. It has fewer distractions. It's just like there's not notifications per se. It's just like generally like simpler. It's simpler because you don't have typically overlapping windows. It's consistent, right? Like it's just text. Pretty dense informationally. Like since it is just text, you don't have like a lot of white space. There's a few exceptions, like some systems like email and calendars, specifically Gmail and Google Calendar, are already pretty informationally dense, pretty like good at presenting the information, especially calendar. Like I go to the web page for the calendar. I don't try to bring that into the command line. The other reason I use the command line is because it's portable. Like portable as in I can keep it for a long time. I've been working on this system for years, and I use exactly the same setup in this job as in the previous job. And I even use the same setup at home with a different set of data files. So that makes it super stable. So I can own the process. I can adjust the process to the way that I want to work, and it doesn't change on me. It's also portable because I can run it anywhere. I was running it on my Mac, but I was having trouble. So I put it on a Linux VM in the cloud. And the way that I connect to it is I always run Tmux. So Tmux is like my Windows manager. This is the thing that allows me to reconnect and pick up where I left off. So I don't have to worry about closing my laptop. And the way that I get to Tmux is I use mosh. Mosh is a SSH sort of replacement that it does SSH, starts a little server with a private key, and then it syncs the over UDP packets. So you can actually I can close my laptop, go downtown, open it up at a coffee shop, and I immediately have a responsive terminal. I don't have to reconnect to SSH or anything because those UDP packets will automatically find their way. As soon as the first one makes it to my Linux desktop, it starts sending the UDP packets back to the right place at the coffee shop. Yeah, so it's super, super portable and it's responsive. Mosh also has the ability to do intelligent echo. Like usually when you type, characters get echoed back. So if I happen to be working somewhere where there's really high latency or bad internet connectivity, it can seem it's pretty seamless because it will predict that, most of the things that I type are going to come back to me, and it will underline the things that are predicted and it'll automatically correct. So those are some of the things, just like little refinements that make the command line work. So that's why I'm really super focused on the command line. So as far as organizing myself, I use Emacs orgmode. So Emacs is this editor. It's pretty old, kind of weird, but it works. It's available just about everywhere. The key bindings are common, like the same key bindings that you find on the terminal. Usually also are working in Emacs, so it is good for muscle memory. Org mode is just modes in Emacs are just like like when you open a particular file, it changes some of the behaviors of the editor. And in particular, org mode is a very rich mode for organization. It's on top of another one called outline, and it is based entirely on text files. And these text files have, headlines, has a hierarchy, creates an outline, has a lot of features. I'm going to show you what that looks like now. So this is, you can see I'm in Tmux here, and you can see I have multiple windows. And I'll come back to this and tell you what each one of these windows is. But Windows 0 is always my organization. This is the one that I always open up first. And this is what's called the agenda view of org mode, and it's just a week view. So I have I have a weekly view, and I have my dashboard. Sort of shows me like the things that are scheduled for today. I can also associate deadlines with things, and then they will also come up sort of and be rather persistent and sticky. Things that are scheduled sort of automatically roll over to the next day. So sometimes in order to start a new list for the day, I deschedule things and then go back to my other lists to bring things into the day. Some of those lists I actually put up here on the dashboard, like promises. These are things that I told people I would do. When I say I'm going to do something, I try to annotate it as a promise, just sort of like I can keep track of it. Things that are urgent, like somebody's waiting on me, like a merge request or a review or something that just needs to be, it's time sensitive. Usually these need to get scheduled right away. Important things, of course, are things that just generally are big rocks to move. And I have a new category here called remote. And remote is just a remote system that also contributes to important things to pay attention to. The only one here so far, this is kind of new, it's my GitLab to-do integration. So all my to-dos get imported here automatically, and then I can schedule them. And now that they're in org mode, I can control and interact with them in the same way that I do everything else. So this is how I externalize my thought process of saying what's important, what are the things I could do, putting together a schedule for my day, etc. And there's tags. So of course, these tags have the big ones that I was mentioning have special tags like urgent, promise, important. Then there's other tags like, things to read. So if I hit tab, I can pull this up and I can click on read, and I can see a bunch of stuff that if I feel like reading something, I can pull that up. So here's my dashboard again. It's easy to get to. The way that I usually just use this for like my own thoughts and thought process, but a lot of the work is in other places. So I typically use like URLs. So like most of these items, you can see here that there's like this outline view. Most of these things have URLs here that I can click on. And I use, the integration with the terminal in Mac so that it actually opens it up here on my Mac, not on the Linux machine, So I could make it open on the Linux machine. That's not helpful. I may as well just open it up here. So anyway, when I go to actually do this work, I'll actually like pop open this epic here. So even Gmail, actually, like when I want to remember to come back to an email, I'll copy the URL of Gmail and put it in here. And then when I click on it, it loads Gmail, goes to that message. I could see what to deal with, but I don't think about what to do in Gmail because it doesn't really take into account the way that I want to work. Yeah, so that's the agenda view. I also have some priorities that I can stick here, like, A, B, C, D, that sort of bring things up to the top of the list. I usually use this to order my day. So like when I sort of think about things that I want to do today, I'll, highlight a few things that I want to do first and second and third. If I really want to have an order, I can actually pop over to my actual log file here, and I can create an entry for today, put things, move the things in there and move them in a more granular way. I just kind of work one way or the other, just depending on like how focused I am and what I need. If I need a step-by-step set of instructions, I can do that for myself. If I just need a general pool of things to try to get to, I can do that too. And I know how because it's org mode and I've been using it for a long time and nothing's going to take that away from me. Yeah. Yeah, like I said, these are just the same way of working. I use at home and I used it in my previous job. So the only difference is, like where it's stored, and it's always stored or aliased into the org folder. So inside org, I have log and notes, and I have this new remote file, which gets synced in to pull in remote stuff. And I keep a few other things in here, like some documents, like more like, presentations or perf that I do. I have an org mode file there that I can link, and you can link between files in org too. And that comes in handy for the actual work, day-to-day work. And I'll show you how that comes into play. The other thing I can do is I can query for perf. I write down everything, like even little things, like I want to tell this person this thing, or just little stuff, just because I forget, like it's just my particular brain needs a lot of external storage. And so like if I just spent some time explaining something to somebody, or if I connected two people, like I can keep all that like written down. And when it comes time for perf to describe the kinds of things that I've been doing and the themes, etc., I could just query for everything that was closed. Because whenever I close something, it automatically puts this close tag here. And you see that, it was scheduled at a time, it was created at this time, it was closed at this time, and I can, it'll record that automatically. So yeah, that's basically how my org mode setup works. That's to help me figure out what to do. Now, when I actually sit down to do the work, some of it's in the UI, so I just use those stable URLs. A lot of it, like the coding, is actually here in the command line too. So for example, I did some work on this fleeting plugin that does, that runs in Kubernetes. It's just a prototype, sort of I used it as a basis for a video for how to write a fleeting plugin, and also as a proof of concept that, like there's a variety of ways we can integrate with Kubernetes. Each in Tmux down here, each window is a thing, like a task. Like when I think about changing gears, or if somebody asks me, what are you doing today? And I say, I'm doing this thing. That's the thing that I keep organized here, because sometimes I have to change it. But when I come back, it's always the same. And I'll tell you more about how I make sure that's the case. So like here, you see, I was, well, I closed it now, but I was in the middle of stepping through some code. Having these, and each one of these windows is a different thing that I'm doing. But within that, these panes, I can rearrange them. I can move them up and down. I can do it with the mouse because I have mouse integration for everything, or I can do it with the command line. I can, I can move. Oh, let's see. I can do it, move it down, up, up. I forgot. I'm typing it wrong, but I can do a little bit of movement too if I don't feel like reaching for the mouse. Generally, each one of these things also matches a folder. So the work that I do, I usually have in a work folder, and I call it the same. I have a subfolder, which either is just one repository or like a folder with multiple repositories checked out, like a Go workspace. And so I like all of these files that I have open also are going to be in exactly the same state. Like I know I can git check out this and that, but that's a bunch of overhead. Like when I want to switch back, I really want my brain to be able to just like snap right back to where it was. And so all the files are the same. And I haven't done anything fancy with bash to make it sync my history. So each process still has the same bash history, which I rely on a lot because a lot of times I'm hitting up, enter to kind of keep doing the same things over and over again. So I do want bash history to be local. And yeah, so I got a lot of things going on here. And each one of these, like whenever I open up these Go files, has a process in the background called gopls. So gopls is the official Go syntax, like checking, highlighting plugin. I think what's the system called? It's like there's a new standard for like integration with IDEs. So like most IDEs will be able to integrate with gopls. And that allows me to do things like, it'll highlight things that I do wrong. Let's see if it does it. Yeah, see, it knows that's a no-go. And it will tell me what it is, and it'll allow me to do some auto completion. I can find out where this thing is used, like where is it used? Well, it's used over here too. This is kind of interesting. And if I want to find out what an autoscaler is, I can drill down on that struct, so I could do a lot of the IDE stuff. I can go kind of back and forth, etc. But all on the command line. Yeah, so, if I let me just open up a new pane because I'm going to do a new thing. PSAF, oops, PSAF. You can see I actually have a lot of bashes, and I have a lot of Emacs's, and I have a lot of, you should have a lot of Go pleases, but I don't know why I see them. I think they all shut down after a while. It looks like I'm still watching a Kubernetes cluster here. So I don't even remember where that is, but it doesn't really matter. Yeah, some file systems some things on the file system are global, like the GitLab, runner config. So I put that in a Git repository. It's entirely local. I don't push it anywhere because it has that token. But what I can do is I can just go to my, I'll have a branch called thing, right? Like I'll have a branch called plugin Kates that has the GitLab runner config that I was using. So I'll just check out that branch, and I can sort of, the parts of my global state are always in a Git repo as well as the underlying data files. I don't know if I mentioned that or not, but like my org folder where all those org files is also a Git repo. And so I commit and push that regularly so I never lose my data. Things are very ephemeral. Like I could probably replace my whole machine in a matter of an hour and have everything kind of ready to use again, except for, of course, like the organization of these running processes. Yeah, so that's generally like what it looks like. Like it's kind of just the same thing over and over again. There's a few other like fancy things that I do sometimes. Like I can run a timer in Tmux. You know, I've put a Pomodoro timer here, and I can pause it and I can, you know, continue it just or stop it. Just, you know, just little things like that. Just, you know, allow me to keep track of like how long I've been focusing on something, because it's great that I have a very distraction-free environment, but I have to remember to come up for air too. The way that I interact with like meetings and stuff is at the beginning of the day. I look at my calendar and I literally set an alarm on my phone 1 minute before every meeting. So I'd never have to worry about, I don't worry about missing a meeting, because an alarm will go off and tell me you're joining this meeting. And that way I can work all the way up until the end without like thinking about going there. Like it helps reduce the buffer of unproductivity around meetings, and also helps me not skip them, which I'm liable to do while I'm hanging out here on the command line. Additionally, like I've got a stream deck here. And so when I join a meeting, I just have a button to just pull up Zoom and turn on the camera, so I can just like jump right into it, and one to hang up. And I also have a thing called Divi, which lets me just like rearrange my windows on the Mac, but by like large block increments. So instead of like trying to get my terminal to line up exactly with my web browser, if this is not a thing that you do, don't worry about it. But like that's a thing that I do. Like I need it to be like right next to each other, and I could spend less time doing that with Divi. Yeah, so the timer on the command line, I can reconnect, you know, if I get disconnected or something, if like my laptop reboots, all I have to do is reopen Mosh, you know, just I don't have it here, but because it's always on, I always run Mosh from my, you know, laptop. I just reconnect with Mosh, Tmux reconnect, and I'm right back into the same environment. And the final thing that I do every day over here in org mode is I just run my end of day script. So I just type EOD, it grabs all my org mode files, commits them with the day number, how many days I've been working at GitLab. I don't know. I had him come up with a commit message, pushes them up, checks to see like if I have any running GCP hosts, you know. This is the machine that I'm on, my development machine. And I have a few others, but they're terminated, so they're not accruing costs. Checks AWS to see if I have any resources that are costing money. Looks like I have a snapshot that I need to delete. I ran a Mac and forgot to delete the underlying disk, you know, and then that's it, you know, and then I'll just pick up where I left off tomorrow. So yeah, that's my work process. It's highly focused on the command line, highly focused around like condensing information into like a consistent format for me to sort of externalize my thought process and design my day and try to like keep things from injecting stuff into my attention. Yeah. So that's one way to set it up. I hope that it's some of this was interesting and useful. Your setup may look completely different. If there's anything here that looks interesting you want to know more about, you can always go check out my personal config. It's open source, of course. And it's here on GitHub under my name, Joseph Burnett, personal config. It has all the Emacs configuration, the Tmux configuration, which I try to keep to a minimum, so it's as vanilla as possible. All that stuff is there on my personal config, so you can, any part of this that was useful, you can grab for yourself. So thanks for watching, and I hope you are productive.